Hi everyone, this is my second video regarding the subject of autism. And autism is something that we have encountered in our tribe, in our family tribe. And looking back, I realized that the apple doesn't really fall too far from the tree. I have an autistic grandson, but as we've learned more about autism, I realized that my late father was probably on the spectrum as well, what they used to consider they used to call it Asperger's, and that related to people who did usually were able to function a little bit better in the world. Not quite so. I don't like to use the word severely impacted because that creates a confusion about linear perception, which autism is not. But he functioned a lot better than a lot of folks who are really deeply impacted by autism did. And so he had one son, my half brother, which I was not raised with. And this young man, he was now 83, is autistic and lovely and bright and articulate, but definitely is quirkier than can be. And it didn't take us, he was in his 70s to where when my sisters and I finally had him evaluated, and sure enough, now it explained a lot of things. So again, the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. And my grandson, like I said, is now 6 years old, and he's definitely on the spectrum. But today I'd like to share a few myths about what I have learned about autism. And it's very important to dispel some of these rumors, because I think what happens is it turns into more of a fearful, scary diagnosis than what it really needs to be. Because there's this perception that autistic people are that they're closed off, that they lack empathy, that they don't really bond with people whom they love, that they're incapable of showing and receiving love, that there isn't this two-way interaction. And I can tell you that those things are just not true. My father, for example, was an incredibly affectionate man, just so deeply kind and loving to my sisters and me, and to my mom. And my half-brother is also a very kind and warm and loving man. My grandson, this is a little boy who is so deeply bonded with his people. When he comes home from school, he'll cuddle up with his mom and he'll say, "Relax, lay down and relax." And he will just hold her face in his little hands and he just loves on her and kisses on her and hugs her. He is deeply connected to the people he loves. And if somebody gets hurt whom he loves, it is exceedingly upsetting to him. He definitely empathizes. And I dare say that sometimes I think autistic folks they are so tuned in to emotional distress or changes, and they may not quite know quickly how to assimilate it, because face reading can be kind of hard for them at first. It's like, what does that mean? But when they get it right between the eyes. And it can be somewhat, for some folks, almost an overwhelming experience. But the idea that they don't like socializing, or that they don't like I'm lumping them together, and I don't like even doing that, that they are unable to be physically close and emotionally close. If you have a child on the spectrum, or a loved one on the spectrum, or a grandchild, anybody on the spectrum that is part of your tribe, even if they're not outwardly showing it, the connectedness that they are feeling to people whom they love is very deep, very deep. Don't dismiss that, because there are connections that they have already made that are woven almost like the roots of a tree underground. You may not see them, but they are there, and they are strong ties. These children, these people, love deeply, and many of them are devastated when they are separated from people that they love. So, with that in mind, autism is not a linear condition, meaning it doesn't get to where it's mild, medium, severe, highly impacted, low impact. Again, that's why I hate to refer to it that way. What we find in autism is that oftentimes folks present with what's called a spiky skill set. That means that there will be some things that they are very, very good at, and right next to them can be things not so good at. And it is not like, oh, you gradually get to where you're better or worse with what you are able to do. Let me give you an example. There can be nonverbal folks who are autistic who are physicists, hold down jobs, work out, very, very detailed problems, but not speak. Or people who are computer whizzes and can program computers, but for the life of them don't have the skill set to be able to organize their pantry or go grocery shopping. And there is also a common misconception that autistic folks are all like the Rain Man, the movie with Dustin Hoffman or whatever, where there's this introverted personality, but they're brilliant, that they know dates and they can fast forward and add things up, or go behind in history and come up with a date or whatever it is. And there are a lot of folks who are savants, who are exceedingly intelligent, who are autistic. And there are a handful of people who also, along with the autism, have a mental disability or a delay. So it isn't across the board that if someone is autistic that they're going to be brilliant like Einstein, nor does it come across the board that they will have a developmental disability. And I will say something about the developmental disability. It is not under the same umbrella as autism. Oftentimes with autism, you will see some coexisting conditions, and so there can be some disabilities, some mental disabilities that can come along with it if somebody has had an impact. We don't understand all of that, but that is not autism. It is not under that same umbrella. It is a condition that can coexist with that. So it's a whole different thing. And the idea that all autistic folks, like I said, are brilliant is also somewhat of a myth. It seems like about 30% from the stats that I have read, about 30% of folks on the spectrum are highly intelligent. Some are a little below, and most of them are about average intelligence. The difference is, though, is I think, there's lots of differences, right? One of the differences is that I think that autistic folks are really the true connoisseurs. What has value, what is important to them has value, no price. And what I mean by that is that they know what it is that they want. They know what it is that gives them pleasure. And nothing else really matters that much. But what does matter to them matters so deeply that is a special interest, and they are driven to really want to focus on that. So the myths, again, that I really want to make a point to drive home is that do not be afraid that that little autistic child whom you love so deeply and you have so much hope for, don't be afraid that they don't know how to love you. Don't be afraid that they don't know that you love them, because they do. And when you realize that you have one of these precious people amongst you, your world cracks open. And somehow, when we are hit with that knowledge, if it's the first time, you feel like you are in a spin. And again, I would encourage you to just realize that there is a gift. And along with the challenges, there is a gift. And this little person whom you love loves you too. Have a good day.